It's not a bird, it's not a plane, it's Superhero Slate. It's a modern podcast where we talk about everything that's great, like movies, TV, superheroes. It's Superhero Slate. Oh yeah.
Hello everyone and welcome to Superhero Slate, the show where we run down the latest superhero entertainment news.
We love TV, movies, and superheroes, so let's talk it all out.
My name is Chris Dillard.
And my name is Mike Royer.
And welcome to the multiverse of the official Superhero Slate review of Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah, in another universe, what are we doing? Are we still doing a podcast? Maybe we're talking about something totally different. Maybe something very niche like YouTube construction videos.
Oh, yeah.
We review construction videos because there's a multitude of universes, and
That's
we
right.
review everything and every... the most logical thing is in another universe, our podcast is about reviewing snacks because that's pretty much already happening.
Yeah.
It already works its way into the show. So if universes and their weirdness is like based on proximity, I saw Everything Everywhere All at Once, and we saw Doctor Strange. Mm-hmm. None of them touch on the proximity of multiverses, even though they always show them in kind of like that map cluster, right?
Yeah.
But if there's a very adjacent one, right, where almost everything's the same, we're reviewing snacks over in that one for sure.
Exactly. Or we're literally a podcast about reviewing slate roofs for housing projects. So
yes, I like that. I like that we're a lot more practical in another
Yeah.
universe. Really getting down in the nitty gritty.
Superhero slates of roofing, but really, we got to see it's. I to say, Mike, dare we say this is the kickoff of summer, right? While it is not officially summer seasons, the summer of movies starts with May 1st, the first weekend of May, and Marvel has bookended that for the past 14 years, pretty much straight.
Yeah.
And they kick it off with Doctor Strange, the sequel to Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, featuring again Doctor Strange. The Scarlet Witch / Wanda, and directed by, of course, longtime superhero director, veteran even, Sam Raimi. So
yeah, and I would say a lot of worlds colliding, pun intended, maybe, for Sam Raimi right now. All of this, an entire Spider-Man trilogy has kind of been revived recently with the previous Spider-Man movie being helmed by Sam Raimi back in the day. Yep. So this just feels really very timely at the moment.
And there's an Evil Dead video game coming out, which is what he cut his teeth on.
I didn't even know that there's an Evil Dead video game coming out, but that sounds like it could be fun.
Yeah.
But just like the beginning of every review, we're going to be spoiler free, and we'll sound the alarms because we jump on the spoilers. Because my God, Chris, you know this from experience. I hope you saw this movie already. If you're listening to this review here at the beginning of the week, I pray that you have seen the movie because I've unmuted all my keywords after Thursday night, and then after just casually scrolling through Twitter and just seeing like MCU things like recommended to me through the algorithm, like major cameos, totally spoiled. Like, unfortunately, it happened to you before you saw the movie. It happened to me like 24 hours after I saw the movie, still in the midst of the weekend. So I know we have a friend of the show, Quentin Parker, who, congratulations, he has a baby coming along the way very, very soon. So I don't know how soon he'll be able to see Doctor Strange, but he miraculously avoided the spoiler of extra Spider-Man in the Spider-Man movie.
How did he do it? I still don't know how he did it.
If any man on the planet can avoid the cameos and spoilers in Multiverse of Madness, it is him.
Tell us your secrets, Quentin. I want to know how you remove yourself. But again, we do a show every week. We open ourselves up to this, and I will say, again, spoiler free, there are things in this I did not know. And I feel like we know a lot about movies before they come out. Like, maybe not fully spoilers, but a lot more than we think we do. And,
this is like the maybe intended consequence of having to shoot everything inside of a studio, inside of a warehouse in front of like a green screen or on a set, right? Because we always get the set photos, right? Set photos all the time. We're already seeing like Michael Keaton in the sidewalks for the next Warner Brothers movies coming up, right? But when you're down in Atlanta or in Australia, sometimes where they're shooting this stuff in a warehouse, you can keep everything pretty locked down. But, usually, we'll start off our reviews with a little bit of theater-going experiences. Mine, luckily, was pretty good, but our guest co-host the other week and superfan Jim Mintier reached out to me to let me know that some psychotic person brought a dog into his screening and was barking during the movie. So I pray to God that the human race is better than that. Do not bring your dogs into the movie. That is like, I don't want crying kids or loud, obnoxious children in my theater, but they're human beings, so they're allowed to be there, right? But there's no price for dogs on the marquee outside. It's not kids, seniors, adults, and then dogs for $4 to get in. No dogs. And I was assured that this wasn't a service animal. There was no vest, ain't no nothing on that dog. So the humanity, I feel so bad for Jim that he had to put up with a dog in his theater.
What I love about going to the movies is the movies, right? Being there, being that. What I hate about the movies is the actual experience anymore. And I'm going to talk about this. Jim, yes, he had a dog and it barked. I'd be fucking livid. And I say this because I had a piss poor experience as well. Like
such a bummer,
horrible experience. And honestly, first and foremost, I texted you my first, the first time things were going bad, was actually that I get in and they're like, it's now a 3D showing. So they've upgraded my ticket to a 3D.
Without telling you.
Without telling me. I'm like, fine, I can sit through a 3D, experience. It's not going to make or break my world. So it's fine. But I actually don't find this out until I get into my theater and I notice people are opening 3D glasses around me. I'm like, what did I miss here? So then I sit down in my seat and the seat breaks. The hinge comes undone from the actual seat itself. And half of it is just kind of lingering there in the air and the other half still attached. So I do what any sane person would do and not talk to anyone at the theater because at this point I don't trust them. And I'll tell you, that'll continue in a second. I open up the movie app and see what available, if there's another seat around me that's open. Thankfully, to the right of us, the seat had not been purchased. So I was able to shift over one seat. And not, no one came up, no one showed up, totally fine with that. So I go get my 3D glasses, they hand them to me, I go back, I'm watching this. None of the trailers are in 3D until we get to Avatar. Great, I'm gonna watch Avatar in 3D. Awesome. The wrong 3D glasses. They gave us regular ones and not IMAX 3D glasses. Lo and behold, did not know they were different. So, my wife runs back into the front of the theater and picks up the IMAX one. So I didn't actually get to catch hardly any of the Avatar screening, which was part of
bless your wife knowing that this movie is so important to you that she doesn't want you to miss anything and run out and get the glasses.
Well, I did the first one, so I was like, let's split the difference here. And then literally not close enough where I could kick their seat the whole time, but two people, one row in front of me, one row in front of them, at a diagonal, 45 to my right. Both of them were on their phones at full fucking brightness throughout this movie.
It's like, if you have to be on your phone, can it please be the person directly in front? Because it's always it's that sight line in between the gaps of the seats, right, when they're at the angles. Oh,
and then I'm in 3D glasses, so it's picking up the brightness even more, right? Like you're getting that glare off of them. So literally everything up to this movie, 99% of things up to this movie are just absolutely ruining this whole experience for me. So every time the trailers were like only in theaters, I'm like, I sure hope not, because
I am never coming back here. Like when the Top Gun trailer, that's like very infamous, or at the very end, like, only, motherfucker, you're only ever seeing this in theaters.
Yeah. And so like I really wish that, I want to go back to the movies. I want to go back to these things, and it's not COVID I'm worried about anymore. It's the people who have lost absolutely all ideas that anyone else exists other than themselves. And
also,
I
like, these are first showings. These are Thursday night showings where you are supposed to be a fan.
It's not even
the biggest fan in your area if you're going that early. And like now more than ever, like, I don't feel bad talking about this. Sometimes I felt like we were killing time on the podcast talking about our movie going experiences. I think it's now more important than ever because studios desperately want us back in those theaters because they want those dollars. Then you got to work harder to make that theater going experience better, right? Like, I don't care. double the price of your popcorn, but put like a security guard in every row. I know it seems militant, but like I've never been to an Alamo Draft House before, but I hear that they are very, very militant about that. Like they will crack heads if they need to. So I want my Cinemark to start cracking heads. Luckily, I had a relatively normal theater going experience, but I've had plenty of movies ruined.
The biggest win out of this is the AMC exclusive Doctor Strange popcorn bucket, which I showed you, which is a translucent box with the Doctor Strange symbols on the side. Mm-hmm. And it's actually pretty big. Like, you know, I put it in my hand. It's fairly large. And thankfully, the person behind the register was like, do you want the popcorn in it or in a bucket? I'm like, thank you for not just pouring it in this bucket, because that's going to be a nightmare to clean.
He needs a raise. They need a raise.
Yeah, exactly. So thank God for them. But you know, other than that, the experience is just, you know, I'm not looking forward to going back because of the people rather than the actual other things around. And I hate to say that out loud, but it's just the nature of it. And this was 4:00. This wasn't even Thursday night, Mike. Like, you have to be
4
off
o'clock
work.
Yeah. Those are people that have to like flex vacation hours in order to go to the theater, and they're on their phone. Oh my God. Between this and a dog, I've lost faith in humanity. And there's even worse things going on in this country right now.
I know.
And we can't even go to a movie anymore either. This is insane.
It is wild. So
fired up.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, I don't think it has hindered my experience watching the movie, thankfully, knock on wood. But I will just say, you know, I'm going to be ranting about this to everyone I see for the next month. Because hopefully if I tell a friend and they tell a friend and then they tell their friends, hopefully people will learn to shut up and get off their phones in the movie theaters if we're going back. Because if literally, if that guy in the front had been in front of me or within kicking distance, I would have just been kicking the back of a seat the whole time it was on. Like, and if he would like stop him, like, well, get off your phone. Like, you're annoying me, I'm annoying you. Like, well, I could do this all day, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So,
like, we should get like a discount on our movie tickets if we hand our phones over as we walk in or something. Just incentivize people in some way.
I would say, you know, short of, you know, there are extenuating emergency circumstances where you might need your phone in the theater. I get this, but a Faraday cage around every movie theater going forward, not upset about this idea. We probably get a lot more early screenings, if I'm going to be honest. So
we need somebody like a sniper on a balcony with like an EMP gun, like sniping people's phones in their hands when they pull them out. I'd volunteer for that job. You don't have to pay me.
Yeah, it'd be fun. And then the other thing I would say, you brought this up, is literally I was not looking up anything on this movie. I was in a totally different thread of conversation online and literally came across probably the only one of three things in this movie I think I had zero to negative idea about, or even any guesses on. And it just, like, I was like, why are you posting this image, a screenshot from the film? And it was like in a thread about, I think it was even about like how to get dandelions out of my yard, like, kind of thing. Like,
oh my God,
not even related to any of this. Like, people are out there literally just being assholes all around, and I don't get it. Like, there's no reason to be that. So I don't think anyone. I say I don't think anyone listening to the show was those people, but I mean, Jesus Christ, it's been a week, man. It's been a week.
A plea for decency.
Yes.
But weirdly enough, didn't stop people from going to the movies, right?
No, it did not. It did not. And ironically, I did want to point this out before we jump into this. It is Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, MOM, on Mother's Day weekend. They released Doctor Strange Mom on Mother's Day weekend.
Oh, look at that.
I know. And there's another reason for that. We'll talk about it later. But people, maybe they're taking their moms to watch this. Maybe that's why all this is, because this movie has had a $450 million opening weekend worldwide. It is almost $500 million within 4 days, which is crazy to think of, right? And this movie has also been banned outright in Middle Eastern countries and China. So this is no China money at all thrown at this. So that's really, I think, an impressive number. I feel people are going back. I honestly thought people would not know how to feel about a multiverse, right? Like, I feel like that's a high concept term that maybe people wouldn't be ready for. But by God, people are going out in droves to watch this, Mike. And that makes it the 5th highest MCU opening worldwide. probably behind at least 4 Avengers movies, and maybe Iron Man 3 I think had a lot of money behind it. It could be, I don't know what else broke $1 billion. Maybe Spider-Man. Anyway, and then also the second highest solo MCU movie.
Yeah, and I would say that's pretty good considering this character in and of itself really was only ever cameoing in other very big movies, right? You know, I think his first outing in his very first movie was just an average origin story, but, you know, he became a lot more iconic in these other big films. I don't think many people were familiar with a lot of his material from the comic books, at least the general public, which is what usually brings these box office dollars. So the fact that they brought in this much money, I think it says a lot for the power of the MCU, just being able to, as we've always said, make a movie about just about anything, and they get the dollars going in. We'll talk more about the critical reception, the audience reception, and our thoughts here in a moment. But overall, I think everyone would consider this a success.
Oh yeah, 100%. I think even if they stop showing screenings tomorrow, I think this is a win, right? Like everyone, it made money. People are seeing it, and it sounds like possibly with this much money, multiple screenings for some people. I don't know anyone yet. I've not had a chance to. I still need to cool off from my current movie theater experience before I go back to the theater again. But you know, Doctor Strange, no one says the first Doctor Strange is their favorite MCU movie, right? Like, it's serviceable. It does a great job introducing the character and magic and mysticism into the world, but it's not like everyone's like, I gotta watch it. It's an essential viewing. It's really not. But you know, with his small parts, literally in Endgame and I wouldn't say Endgame, actually Infinity War, right? As a character who actually is like one of 2 people to actually put Thanos in a concerned state. Very, very awesome to see him get his own movie. And I think one of the better things is, I think they did say this in Spider-Man, he's not the Sorcerer Supreme either, right? Like, he's not even the best wizard in all of the wizarding community. So I think that's really fun to do that. And then, I'm not going to talk about the movie, but overall, Mike, do you want to dip your toes in this a little bit? I think we've talked more about this movie than any other movie going actually into review. So I feel like I know where your head's at.
Yeah, I do have to say, so spoiler free, this was just a really wild ride. I can't think of a better way to describe it without, you know, sounding just like a cliche that you throw up on a movie poster, right? But yeah, the ride was absolutely wild. I had a great time. The first half of the movie is a little bit slow. I feel like it takes a while to really kind of get its cleats into the track. But man, once you get going on that backstretch, it is just so much fun. It was great being surprised again in an MCU movie, especially with this show that we do. I feel like we know all the little ins and outs before the movies come out, but I was happy to be surprised once again. You know, obviously we'll talk about after credit scenes and that moving forward, but I think the most impressive single thing about this film is it's great to get a visual and creative perspective from a director, right? The last time we talked about this was the last Warner Brothers movies with the Batman, Matt Reeves. It was just great to feel somebody's creative eye behind these big budget superhero movies, and I really felt I was just getting awesome Sam Raimi stuff. The way he would control the camera, the way he would just like push the characters and the acting. I just had a great time. I don't think this is necessarily my favorite MCU movie, but I would definitely put it up there in the top for sure. As we all know, I internally struggle to ever come to a consistent rating system or to even rank these movies that I like. I'm just kind of always going off vibes or feelings. Yeah. But the current cinema score out there, and that is as they poll people as they leave the theater, is sitting around like a B+. I would say B+ feels about right. Maybe A, maybe I'm a little bit more of like an A, about more of an A-. But yeah, I really feel like this is a great, fun film, and I had a really good time, and I'm looking forward to watching it again. I was able to find a couple like black market clips, if you will, which is another reason to stay off of Twitter, because I even seen people making GIFs out of cam footage, which I feel like I've never really seen that before after a major MCU release. So I'm kind of getting to relive these moments just days later on Twitter. and I'm having a really fun time because it's just really creative and really fun. So I could very easily recommend this for people. I suppose it could be a little confusing if you're not caught up with the MCU, right? Because you're dealing with lots of concepts.
That is a pin I want to put in the cinema score for later. So that, I think what you just said and the cinema score tie together. Because I saw the same thing, so we can talk about that in a minute. But I don't want to. Let's put a pin in those two things.
Yeah. So overall, it's a great time. But if you are indeed bringing your mother to see the Multiverse of Madness this weekend, and she's not caught up with the MCU, I think she's just gonna be wholly confused on what the heck is happening. There's a great character turn at the beginning of the movie that I was not expecting, but they committed to it, and it turned out great. Amazing performances overall. I mean, Elizabeth Olsen just rocked it. I feel like this is the best interpretation, the most entertaining and funnest, if that's even a word, of the Scarlet Witch that I've seen on screen. I just had a really, really good time. Like you said at the very beginning, the start of the summer movie season, this felt like a really fun, wild summer movie. And as we get more into it, I see a lot of people out there like comparing this to Everything Everywhere All at Once, just because it's also another multiversal movie. But to me, it's like comparing like different restaurant chains, or it's almost apples and oranges at this point. Totally different budgets, totally different subject matters. One's coming from a franchise, one is just I would struggle to call it an indie movie, but it's coming from A24. So I just really wish people wouldn't compare the two, because it's not worth comparing, because it's just two totally different sensations. But yeah, I would, if you're anywhere adjacent to the MCU, which if you're listening to this podcast, I assume you are, you're gonna have a great time watching this. But I could see a struggle if you're on the more of the periphery, right? Like we said earlier, if you got a friend that's having a baby soon, maybe they can't exactly run out and see this one right away. I think that'll be okay. But yeah, Chris, I had a great time. What did you think?
Yeah, I was gonna say this is a very risky movie to put out here. It leans into again, a character who's kind of been at the periphery of everything, right? That's very popular, leading into a director who left superhero movies on kind of a bad taste in everyone's mouth. And then also kind of like, this is the first movie since the last Spider-Man No Way Home, which everyone, faithfully loves. But it honestly literally leans into the horror genre more than any other Marvel movie out there, right? Like, I wouldn't say there would be kids crying at this movie, I feel, if you took them to it. But none of this is bad. I'm going to say this is the perfect storm of everything that I think we want for a comic book movie. Like, this is the most common. All these terms in this movie use are things I've read in comic books in the past 10 years, and I loved every second of it. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, this is stuff you would only read about in a comic book page. Some of the visuals are things you would only see drawn, right? Rather than actually filmed and put in a theater and expect $500 million within 4 days to get. Like, it really, sometimes I look at it, I'm like, this shouldn't work. And it does, but you're right. This is probably one of the fewer movies, just a sequel, a second movie that has a lot more required viewing than I think other MCU properties have done a little bit. And I feel, again, the audience who hasn't seen everything, I had people ask, hey, I've not seen WandaVision. Should I watch this? Yes, you should. Literally, you're not going to know why the Scarlet Witch has this costume, let alone anything else in this movie, without watching WandaVision. And it leans into it and a little bit. So I think, it's I would also say Loki is very important for this movie as well along the way. But, it's really, I think I have to say I'm biased. I just love the shit out of it. It's just very, like I said, very comic booky. This is stuff I feel like I would read, every month in a book and brought to life. And I will say, we didn't talk about Danny Elfman, who has a history in superhero scoring, right?
Oh, great score.
But like, this isn't your typical Danny Elfman. This isn't your Batman '89. This isn't your Spider-Man. This is 2022 Danny Elfman, who has chest tattoos and is like performing at electronic festivals.
He's at Coachella one weekend, scoring Doctor Strange the next weekend. And I've never quite seen a Danny Elfman score incorporated into an action scene.
Yeah.
Wink, wink, nod, nod. If you've seen the movie, but yeah, that was really fun.
Exactly. So I mean, there's a bunch to this that I just think is great. The visuals are off the chain, right? Absolutely. I think we saw trippy stuff in the first Doctor Strange, but this is like I guess organized chaos, if you will, for the trippiness. There's reasons and rhymes, but like it just feels different. And again, I've never had jump scares in a Marvel movie where I actually jumped in my seat, and this one hit me a couple times. And again, like you said, there's just twists and turns that I didn't even know were coming, and I've come across a lot more stuff than I should have doing just notes for the show. So absolutely fantastic. I recommend this highly to anyone who loves Marvel movies and is caught up in this. But if you have not watched any of the Disney Plus stuff, or even I guess maybe the first Doctor Strange, you would want to watch some of those before you go into this. Going cold turkey is going to be a rough experience for you, where you have a lot of questions the whole way through.
It could be kind of fun though. Like, what the hell's going on?
Yeah.
This was really fun. Now I want to go back and experience it.
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of when you read a book in a big franchise, but books are usually really bad at telling you what number they are in a series because they don't want to stop you from reading the thing that's in front of you, right?
Yeah.
So you read the book and you're like, what the hell's going on? Now I got to go back, and then I got to go forward.
Yeah. I'd probably give my mom a chance at this, but like, what do you think about this? Is this your your free trial to get hooked on the Marvel universe, or are you just like, nah, I'm good? That's one of the two. So highly recommend it for me as well, Mike. I just think this is one of those. Would you say this is like a popcorn movie as well, right? Like, you just sit there and just get absorbed in everything going on, because I agree with you. It does start a little slow, but if you go look at the time frame, I think I jumped halfway through the movie, and they're actually a little farther along than I thought they were. So I think maybe that first part feels slower, but I think maybe by a third of the way in, they finally, because it's the Kentucky Derby here this weekend, those horses really start running around the track. So. You want to jump into spoilers? I feel like I want to say so much and I can't say it.
Yes. Warning. The red flashing light emoji that is often used on your digital keyboard in your phone. Spoilers are starting. Chris, I got to jump right to it because I had this emotional feeling in the movie theater that I had to restrain myself from. When they revealed the Illuminati, I cannot tell you how much I had to hold my own hand down from taking out my phone and like texting you right away because I was just like, I'm so used to like reacting exactly to what I'm watching at home and like letting you know, like when I was doing that whole rewatch of the Resident Evil franchise, I was like, I just had to instantly react to it, but I was like, no, I'm not that kind of movie theater guest. That's for sure. But wow. We all know how I felt about John Krasinski and Reed Richards before we went into this movie, right? I just did not want the fans to have the satisfaction. So congratulations, everyone. You have the satisfaction of John Krasinski as Reed Richards. This is just really weird timing, but the wife and I just finished like our 4th or 5th rewatch or whatever of The Office, like just a day or two before we went and saw this movie. So I was at peak John Krasinski, so probably the best for me going into this. And I thought he did really well. Like he seemed like he was that like hyper intelligent, just kind of like a detached nerd. And then he got dispatched, very quickly. And that's a whole nother scene that we can talk about. But I was like, okay, I would say this is good testing grounds for the casting, right? I've seen some rumors out there online that he will be turning as Mr. Fantastic. Who knows if that's possible and in what capacity? But I was like, okay, well, if we have shown that through Captain Marvel, right, that different actors or at least characters can embody these people moving forward, they could always recast Reed Richards in a future Fantastic Four movie. But I was like, okay, this feels right. This feels okay. So... And then I didn't even catch it until I saw like a bootleg reveal on Twitter. But like he's coming out of like a negative zone or something, right? He
teleports in. So let's break. The biggest question we had, and I think since trailer 1, is there's an Illuminati here, right? An Illuminati, which is essentially the Avengers of another universe in this situation, Earth 828, if you will. And we knew from the trailer that the only really confirmed member is Professor Xavier, or at least we were thought to believe that. I wouldn't be surprised if they pulled the rug out from under us, right, and did some other trailers. But they start with this. We have Master Mordo unveiling these Avengers / Illuminati. The one of the biggest unsurprises to me was Captain Carter, live action version. I believe that I think we kind of heard about this for a little bit. This was in a clip I tried to see, so we get to see that. We get to see not Tom Cruise's Superior Iron Man, but
that was really funny because we were really expecting that. I almost thought that was the spoiler that you saw earlier in the week, which ended up being John Krasinski. That was spoiled for you, unfortunately. But when I saw that, I was like, "That is not Tom Cruise. That is like the opposite of Tom Cruise." I thought that was just funny to me because that's what we just kept assuming.
And so we get Monica Rambeau as this Captain Marvel of this universe. Maria Rambeau, not Monica, the mom, right? The mom of the original. With that, and then John Krasinski as Mr. Fantastic was there. But right before that, we get the MCU introduction of Black Bolt, Mike.
Chris, how is this for you? I have to know because when I saw it, this was I felt it empathetically through you. I lived vicariously. I was like, what would it be if Chris was right next to me when they show Black Bolt on screen?
This is one of those situations where I literally didn't believe it for like 5 seconds. I'm like, there is no goddamn way they're putting Black Bolt in his official costume in this movie. Who is under that mask? Am I being pranked right now? Am I being punked? Because I had no idea. I actually had no idea he would be in here. And they brought the actor from the TV show Anson Mount, whose Star Trek show just launched on Friday, by the way, Brave New Worlds, as well, and put him in the suit. I would say almost a redemption, if you will, of his TV version, right? Because that suit is very, very accurate to the comic books. And then Professor Xavier wheels in on his yellow thing with the animated music right there playing subtly, like you're just
and he's in the yellow wheelchair and everything. Oh man, that scene was great. And they telegraphed, the Illuminati coming up, right? Doctor Strange is being led down hallways. He's brought into a room with empty chairs. And I was like, oh, this is it. This is it. I am in reclining chairs at my movie theater. And that's when I start to hit the button and it's coming down, right? Cause I'm literally on the edge of my seat. Cause I'm like, oh, this is it.
Oh yeah.
It lived up to the hype. It was great. It was fun.
Yeah.
And like we said in the non-spoiler section, we are rarely surprised anymore. And I would say even if you're not listening to a podcast every week about superheroes, right? If you're just watching the trailers, sometimes you're getting a lot of reveals spoiled for you. So I love just being surprised.
Yes, exactly. And that was fantastic for lack of a better word. But we talk about this. Every one of these people have been on screen before. Right, so the John Krasinski kind of felt like this is a fan. This is for the fans. This is for the internet people, the people saying. But you're right. He could be literally a Mr. Fantastic of the upcoming movie, and this was like a screen test for it. Here's the reaction. What do people really think who aren't part of the vocal minority, if you will, and just nail it. He's so level-headed when he's talking. He's very he's not a very emotional. I will say, despite the Illuminati appearing, they're very short-lived. But that's fine. This isn't the Illuminati movie. This is the Doctor Strange movie. And
Also, I think one thing that might rub a little people the wrong way, because the Illuminati is introduced as kind of like this all-powerful force in this universe, and then they're dispatched horribly but very entertainingly very quickly. And I did see some people's thoughts online of just okay, come on, I thought these were supposed to be super powered people. But one thing that you do get a little bit of accustomed to when you read comic books, even just casually, I wouldn't even say I'm a hardcore comic book reader, but whenever you do an offshoot of a comic book universe, right, it's never long lived, right? You never get too attached to it. Only very rarely do you get something like the Ultimate Universe that really sticks around. So I feel like when you're visiting an alternate reality in a comic book, you're just like, okay, this is basically cannon fodder. because how often do you
They're
get a chance
disposable.
to kill off like, you know, iconic comic book characters? Well, you can do it as long as you're in a different universe or like a dream or something like that. So I think Black Bolt was the first to go. I was like, whoa. And his head like caves in, and I feel like they did just the appropriate amount of blood that gets them by with like, you know, the PG-13 rating. So like when Scarlet Witch starts going ham on them, I was like, this movie's for me.
She turns Mr. Fantastic into like string cheese and like pops his head like a pimple at the end of it. And you're like, oh fuck, this is real. We knew they were fodder. I will also say, seeing Black Bolt's voice destroy Doctor Strange of this universe, very entertaining. I was like, he's killing Doctor Strange, but this is everything I've ever wanted in like 10 seconds of movie here. Thank you, Sam Raimi, Kevin Feige. I just want to thank them all for this. But yeah, so the Illuminati, huge scenes. You know, Captain Carter split in half with the shield, right? I saw that kind of coming.
Yep.
That was telegraphed.
And when I was watching it, I was just like, okay, I know she's like superhuman, you know, comparable to Steve Rogers, but like, I don't think they would last this long in reality. And like, oh, there they go, cut in half. Okay.
Yeah. And then a statue on Monica. I guess Mordo lived. He made it out, and then so did this version of the girlfriend, Christine Palmer, as well. So yeah, Illuminati, huge moment in this, and it shouldn't overshadow it, but like, you know, you're just geeked out so much in this scene, like the nerd levels are through the roof. Your heart rate's pumping. You're just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. It's fantastic. But I don't want to overshadow, like, you know, like you said, the turn at the front, which I kind of think I'd predict a little bit on the show. Maybe not so much you, but Wanda is the villain very early on in this movie, and they literally keep her the villain throughout the whole movie, pretty much. So
yeah, and honestly, when it happened, I was like, okay, if this movie turns people off in any way, I feel like it's going to be this moment, right? You know, if you just came off watching WandaVision, you know, you would think that this character has seen redemption, right? But no, apparently she was just stewing in that cabin even longer and just decided, I'm going to do whatever it takes. And that happens to be the Darkhold, you know, literally taking its hold. So it was a bit of a mental hurdle for me, because that's how I left WandaVision, hopeful. And then I kind of had to like reset my brain. And if this movie ended up being ineffective, right? Let's say like a different filmmaker took it on, or the script had speed bumps in it, right? I feel like I wouldn't have been able to accept it as much, but I was able to get there, and eventually I just ended up having a lot of fun, because I feel like Elizabeth Olsen as an evil Wanda is so fun. She had such a good time. I had such an amazing time watching her like back bend out of a gong.
Oh my!
It was just
that
like,
was I even texted you this. I'm like, when she came out of that gong, it felt like The Ring, right? Like she's snapping into place. I'm like, this is like the horror stuff, like, you know, and the Sam Raimi horror. She's leaning into that. You know, even someone mentioned the red clouds whenever she's killing Professor Xavier in that, like, you know, mental asylum, right? Like, everything is creepy.
Neck. Yeah, she has the long black fingernails and like the red eyeballs in that scene too. And it's also helpful, you know, this doesn't really necessarily follow the storyline in something like House of M, but it helps to know that her character in the comic books is not like lawful good, right? She is like very much riding that line between good and evil. Like, really, she's her own worst enemy most of the time. You basically just have to make sure Wanda stays happy so she doesn't destroy all of existence half the time. So it was kind of interesting for them to tread that story in this, of just like, yeah, if this enough sorrow builds up over her, she loses the love of her life. Not only that, but she had to kill the love of her life, and then her
kids,
children just like vanish away from her. Like, oh, I totally get how she could break, but unfortunately, we just didn't quite see that play out at the end of her own TV show, right? So, you know, just to cut ahead to the very, very end with Wanda, just to bookend her story, I don't. It doesn't seem like she's dead, right? It's kind of like the rule in cinema, right? If they're gonna be dead, you show them dying.
There was
right?
a red flash when the rocks fell as well, right? Like,
yeah. So it's like, did she teleport away? Maybe just like her magic was enough to keep her alive. It's hard to think that there's a version or a redeemable white Vision out there who could possibly bring back Paul Bettany, and then a Wanda not being there alongside of it. So who knows in what capacity she'll return, but I don't think she's done.
Yeah, and if she was, I think this is a fine way to end on it as well, right? Like, I feel like, I think if anything, her turn at the end was a little quick, back to good, and to destroy the Darkhold across every universe was a little, but that's fine. I think this is a situation where the movie, the story is there for the characters. We followed Wanda, we followed Strange, we know their pains, we know their successes, and it was great to have a story with them rather than
like we said, the movie is not infallible, right? But if you create one of the best MCU moments I've ever seen, which is Necro Doctor Strange creates wings out of demons, and then he uses them to shield Wanda's magic, and then his demon wings eat the magic. Yeah. That is like the coolest thing I've seen in the MCU in years. And it's like, I'm just so happy that little thing exists. And I knew there was going to be like this zombie Doctor Strange at some point in time, because it's heavily featured in the trailers, and there's even like a still shot of like that Doctor Strange kind of like rising out of like rising up in the sky. And then I just kept thinking, how is he gonna sleepwalk at the end of this movie? Like, how is he gonna connect to his universe? And he's like, nobody said he had to be alive. And I was like, yes, this is so smart. This is great. Right? It's just like, and I loved it so much. And then he even solves I think the wings are just so clever because it's solving a problem that they established early in the movie, that like Wong could only sling ring so close to it because they weren't meant to get there. So I was like, well, okay, how is he going to get over there? He's just a sorcerer. Well, I'll make fucking wings. That's what I'll do out of demons.
I'll use these demons to do whatever I want to do. And they're well, the demons in themselves are highly effective, because if it was just like, here's they're great monsters, but they have that high-pitched shriel, they move really fast, they're like very like, again, Sam Raimi demons, or like hyena laughing, like stuff you'd see in the Army of Darkness kind of demons. And I think that adds to it, like, like even they're having a good time doing this, rather than, like, they're not fighting for good. They're just like, we're here to be chaotic no matter what the outcome is. And that was really, and then literally he stayed in zombie Strange mode like through the end of the movie. Like that was like they didn't bring him back into the universe. They like, zombie Strange is over here, just kind of on the ground, dudes. Hope you figure this out.
And I would say normal Doctor Strange throughout the movie is kind of encompassing the very spirit of the MCU, which is snark. He is incredibly snarky through the whole film, which I know a lot of people like to dig at Marvel for, like, always joking or quipping about like every other scene, but like coming out of Benedict Cumberbatch and this character, it just really works, right? Especially when you're going through something as crazy as a multiverse, right? You just can't take it seriously. Like when you're just seeing silly things happen, like you gotta remark on it in some way. And since we've seen these characters go through lots of like intergalactic and alien struggles, right? That's just like, oh geez, what next? So yeah, I had a fun time watching, but the multiversal stuff on a whole, though, did seem to be a little bit sparse, right? We kind of got that Inside Out moment, right? Very briefly, where they're going through the dimensions and they're like 2D, they're animated, they're like paint or goo or something. So that was a fun scene, but beyond that, we really only see like one or two other dimensions that we really get to play with.
If you want to save money, you do a multiversal movie and use Benedict Cumberbatch to play 4 versions of Doctor Strange all at once. Because he's at the beginning with Defender Strange, right? Who literally sets the tone for this movie. He's like, he's going to die. He died very quickly. Regular Strange. Then we get the Earth 828 Strange, right? The one who was killed by Black Bolt. And then obviously evil Doctor Strange, who ended up being impaled on a fence, by the way.
Ooh, rough.
And he's not the one from What If, so everyone can lay off that for a little bit, because he was a different one who sits at the end of an Incursion. And Incursion, by the way, is one of my favorite series of Marvel books. It's actually a New Avengers thing. But you use one guy to play all these. But I agree, there's it's not a multiversal romp as much as I think we had expected. But by making it character focused, I think that makes up for it in the end for me. I'm like, the characters had more, we're not just jumping from universe to universe because we can. We're being very selective and keeping the story tight, and that's fine for me along the way. But literally, Benedict Cumberbatch was most of the characters in this movie.
And I guess the logical next step is to talk about the new addition of America Chavez to it. I thought her performance was great. A good introduction. I want to see more of her character. It was fun to see her kind of join the sorcery school at the very end, so she's kind of getting trained up.
I thought we'd see Ned there. I literally thought we'd see Ned there, but go on.
That would be fun. I do like kind of like the story element that she is the only version of her character that exists in the universe. It makes her even more special. Adds a little bit more stake to her, right? That you can't lose her and get another one, right? She is the only one out there. So even though she has this very, very awesome power, we probably shouldn't flex it too much because we obviously see what can go wrong if we don't do it right. Her arc was maybe a little lackluster, I would say. Her character development is just to believe in herself by the very end, which I'm not saying doesn't happen in every other movie, right? But it's okay, of course she finally believes in herself at the very end when we absolutely need her to. But I thought visually her star effect was kind of cool. But
the sound, I would say the sound effect of that was actually more impressive as well.
That kind of that craggliness. Yeah. This is just an aesthetic thing, but I kind of wish maybe the star was a little asymmetric, right? It felt a little too perfect, like it was supposed to be a star. I thought it maybe would have been more clever if it was just a rip in space-time, but it just looked vaguely like a star. Then it just wouldn't feel so symbolic, which I get in a comic book. It makes sense, use that symbolism. But I was like, okay, maybe we can be a little bit rougher in the movie. And then you could always evolve it over time, right? Maybe the second or third time her character is in the franchise, it gets more star-like because she has more control over it. That could have been some fun visual storytelling. But the only thing that I would say approached the line of cringe in the movie was her flashback origin, where she's on her own planet, world, or whatever. Her powers activate and her parents get sucked into a portal. I don't know what it was about it. It just was played off kind of weird to me, and I kind of laughed when her parents, quote unquote, died or whatever happened to them. And I was like, it was just weird. It was just out of nowhere, out of left field. They were on they weren't even just on a futuristic planet. It was a totally other existence. There was weird alien plants around them and stuff, and they're in these robes, which who knows, could be very true to her origin of the comics. It just felt very strange and out of place. That's the only thing that I was just kind of ugh, this is kind of weird. But it doesn't last too long, and then we just end up having more fun because after that moment is when the movie really starts, cranking up. Once they get drugged by Mordo in the Sanctum, that's when everything really starts kicking off at 500 horsepower. So I got over it pretty quickly.
Yeah, I don't mind it as much. I think simply because I'm glad we got America at this point in her journey. She'd been maybe 70 universes or something, she said. I forget the exact number.
Yeah, it was in the 70s.
But somewhere. I'm glad we didn't get her when she just first got her power and she solved it by the end of it, right? She gets her power and learns how to control it within the same movie. I think that would have been a huge no-no. So I'm glad that they just did she's senses of urgency and stress or fear trigger her power to start, and then she's been doing this for 72 universes, so she knows her way. She's even shown Strange number one, get food. Most universes have pizza. Sounds delicious. Then we get Bruce Campbell there.
Oh man, hold on, just real quick. As soon as I saw those pizza balls, those are going to be at Avengers Campus on every Disney park across the world. So I'm calling it right now. If those pizza balls aren't already in development, they're about to be.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they probably, like, you have to include this. We made this for the movie. This is our tie-in. But then they go to Bruce Campbell, who wasn't selling pizza balls. Oh, yeah, he was. He was selling the pizza balls. And then, literally, he is the post-credit scene as well, because he has to punch himself in the face for, 2 weeks?
It's over.
It's over. And he's looking right in the camera. I was like, oh, this is fun. This is a good time. I think that was, a really, there's 2 times, actually. I want to point out that they looked in the camera. That time with Bruce Campbell, because we thought he'd have another bigger cameo, but he didn't. Mm-hmm. But the, when Wanda first possesses 828 Wanda, right, in the kitchen, and she, once she possesses and she knows she has control, she looks right at the camera in the audience. I'm like, ooh, I was like, oh, I like shit. That. I was like, oh no, this is serious now.
Yeah, that was really effective. And that whole scene too, at the beginning of the scene when we're starting to kind of see the spooky wind come through the windows and doors and stuff, we get to be the perspective of the camera person, right?
Yeah.
The camera becomes handheld, and when they look over in this direction, we hide behind the banister real quick. And I was like, okay, this is fun. This is
classic horror film.
Yeah, this is what you get when you let a director really be themselves. It does make you wonder, though, right? Because originally this was not going to be the director of this film, and luckily we were able to kind of pivot early on in the production of this movie. But yeah, it does make you wonder what were the creative differences with. It was Scott Dickerson, right?
Scott Derrickson, who's also he was a producer on this one as well. Yeah,
yeah. It does make you wonder, what was the original intention? Where was this going to go? Was there just creative conflict with cameos?
Well, and Michael Waldron who wrote this, is the writer of Loki. That's the other thing he wrote forward to this, and he worked on Rick and Morty before this. So I feel like he has a huge understanding of what makes a multiverse work. And how to really catch that audience. I don't even think the script was written when Derrickson was involved or announced. So
yeah, I mean, but speaking of Loki, and as we're just kind of riffing here, I was really hoping for a little bit more of an explanation, or at least dip our toes into the ideas of what happened in Loki, right? Mm-hmm. Because the first time that we start talking about the multiverse and just the order of all things, everything breaks at the end of Loki. Honestly, it looks like Loki and his variant are what tip all of this off, right? Because they decide to kill Jonathan Majors, and everything starts to rip and unravel and fall apart. I've yet to see any sort of wink and nod to anything that happened in that show, right? We were talking about before Spider-Man came out, right? Oh, maybe that Doctor Strange spell normally would have worked, but maybe something out there in the ether is really unstable, and Doctor Strange doesn't know exactly what happened. And then in this movie, it's just all driven either by the Darkhold or America Chavez. So it's what did Loki do exactly? And I was hoping we would get a little bit more explanation in this movie. So do I gotta wait for season 2 of Loki? Do I gotta wait for the next Marvel movie?
I think it'll be the other way around. I think Loki will reference these other events rather than the other way around. And I only say that because Loki, the time broke. We don't know what year the time broke, right, to split universes off. It's just the universes are now splitting, and technically, I guess they're at the quote unquote end of time, where the He Who Remains is, but they don't explain. So I think Loki just says, "Hey, multiverses can exist now, and this is why."
Yeah,
but I think season 2 will be hey, here's Earth 82, or this is 828. Look what happened on this Earth, and it references,
Yeah, I guess if I had to force an explanation into any of this, it would be if Loki didn't break the universe, the events of Spider-Man and Multiverse of Madness wouldn't have been able to happen.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I guess that's my theory, assumption, or whatever. Maybe America Chavez, whatever universe she was in, if it even existed, did she appear out of thin air in a different universe when the universe broke? I guess that's the operating theory we can go off of right now.
And she could possibly show up in Loki. I 100% think that she could be in Loki, because maybe they're looking for the one anomaly, the time thing tracks all the universes. If there's one person who only exists in one universe and is moving between them, that she may be a huge point in that. We don't know that yet, but it's setting up some future stuff for that.
I feel
show.
like I should go back and rewatch Loki because I feel like I keep forgetting the nuances of that. Of that series.
But I think the other thing here is very important. There are multiverses, which Jake Gyllenhaal from Mysterio said he was from Earth 616, right? Or this is Earth 6. And they also reference that in this one. So I'm like, was he really multiversal, or are they're just making a little Easter egg here? And then 2, the other idea is dimension hopping, right? Like the mirror dimension, and then the introduction. The thing that surprised me, the third thing that I did not know about was Clea, the character Clea, played by, God, I can't think of her name off the top.
Charlize Theron.
Yes, did not know that was going to happen. Had no clue at all. She was in
very. Since we're talking about after credit scenes, directed very oddly, right? I think sometimes we know that these after credit scenes could possibly be directed by other directors, because they're set up at different times, managed different ways. This one felt very strange. It's almost like they did not communicate with what the end of the movie was going to be, with what the after credit scene was going to be. Because at the very end of the movie, we see Doctor Strange, come out of his house. He's whistling Dixie, skipping down the sidewalk, and then his third eye appears. Cut to credits, right? And then the end credit scene begins with him walking down the sidewalk again. And it was like okay,
it felt
this
like
is
5 minutes later, right? It was like
this did not hook up appropriately. So there was a loss in communication. Maybe we didn't really know exactly how the film, the script was going to end until later on after the credit scene was filmed.
I don't think so. I think they filmed them both, the ending scene and that scene, the same day under strict actual if this leaks, you are the 5 people who know what happened here, and we'll get all of you.
Even though if you were to leak the ending of the movie, no one would have known what the hell was going on, right?
Yeah.
Because you would just see okay, Doctor Strange walks out of his house. Okay, there's some tracking dots on his forehead. Okay, he collapses and he yells up towards the sky. Okay, I don't know anything that's happening here.
Yeah, I literally had no idea Charlize Theron was going to be this. Or they used the character Clea. Still don't know. No one knows who Clea is. I just can tell from the purple and the looks, right? I know this comic book character. If I said, Mike, who is Clea and what does she do? You're going to be like, I don't know. She's in Doctor Strange.
I can tell you a little bit because, what do you do between the first end credit scene and the last end credit scene in the theater? You Google Charlize Theron purple Doctor Strange and you get Clea, and then, you dive into the wiki a little bit and you see okay, this is Doctor Strange's wife. Obviously not his wife, and maybe in a different universe. The visual of the universe that because she cuts open she cuts
that's
open.
the difference, because that's what I want to point. She's not hopping universes, she's going into the dark dimension from the first movie.
And it looked very Kirby-esque, right? You kind of see these green and purpley.
That's the Dormammu
dimension.
I'm pretty sure someone said it's exactly the Dormammu dimension from the first movie.
Okay, so and she says you have created an incursion.
Yes.
So is she referencing the only incursion that we get to see in the movie, which is where he has his musical note fight?
Yeah, the musical note fight was actually pretty cool. That was impressive. No, I don't know. That's the thing. I don't know if they've really ironed out the details between universes and dimensions, because America is the only person who can walk freely among universes, right? That we know. Clea cut to a dimension. We've seen Doctor Strange and his other people cut holes to other dimensions. The mirror dimension, where they try to have Scarlet Witch in. He's been in the dark dimension with Dormammu. This is where all the power comes from. They're not different universes. They're just other dimensions. And trying to say this out loud and explain it to somebody, I feel like I go crazy or talk in circles.
Yeah, and it's what did they specifically say? What dimension the Book of Ashanti was in?
It's the realm between universes, kind of where the TVA is.
So it's is that another dimension?
Yeah.
So I wonder if any point in time there's going to be an attempt to clarify any of this, just for clarity. Because is it even a dimension, is the quantum realm. I mean, if you think about it in a physics way, it's really just our universe, just very, very tiny. So, but does that qualify as a different universe? If you get so small, do you slip on through? Do you slip through the metaphorical cracks of dimensions and end up someplace else?
The other important thing is Clea is actually the niece of Dormammu in the comics as well. So that's like, if an incursion is universes colliding, but they're all in the same universe, just different dimensions. What does this even mean? Have I lost it? I don't know. These are details that only we would think about on this. But like, this doesn't take away from the movie. But I feel like we will need that clarification early on in the next movie, because they are teasing Doctor Strange 3 literally right out the gate, right? Like, he has accepted this third eye, whatever it means, whether it's good or bad, we don't know. What abilities will it give him, and what adventures is he going on through all these dimensions with it? I
mean, I would say the ending of this movie feels more likely to be followed up on than the ending of his last movie, right? Because we left off with his rival, Mordo saying no more sorcerers, and we don't even get to see 616 Mordo in this movie at all.
No.
We don't even know where he is. I mean, he could have got dusted, right? But like, he would have came back.
Right.
So we don't know where he is, what that's leading up to. I guess maybe one day we'll find out.
828 Mordo lived as well, because he was left in that little crack in between the Illuminati.
Maybe they're gonna become buddies.
They
the
could
two
team
Mordos
up,
united by their vengeance for actually the same Doctor Strange,
the
right?
Doctor Strange, yeah. And
yes.
With the incursions are actually a Jonathan Hickman creation, who created a lot of the stuff actually all of the Avengers movies have used across everything.
Didn't he have a very popular Fantastic Four run as well?
He had a Fantastic Four run before he went to Avengers, yes. And then he did a bunch of Avengers and New Avengers and Illuminati. So they're literally borrowing everything he has done. I would love to see his Fantastic Four stuff. In his Fantastic Four run, literally the son of Reed Richards, Franklin, the future version from the future, literally has Galactus as a pet. Like, it's how powerful he is. And I'm like, oh, that's fun. But anyway, he created incursions. If they're going to follow this incursion, are incursions the next Avengers level threat rather than Galactus at this time? Is that what we're leaning into? Because
more of a metaphorical enemy.
Yeah. But it also kind of leads into Jonathan Hickman's run, which is a head off the 80s, Secret Wars, where they create a universe of all these the remaining collided universes. And like, there's like, here's Earth, Earth from the comic books, and here's like the Hulk wasteland from another series of books where the Hulks had taken over the world, and here's Marvel zombies, and this world is it's called Battle World.
This is what you do. You send a copy of Secret Wars to every actor that's ever been in the MCU with like a little sticky note saying you can be replaced, right?
Yeah.
This is like the perfect tool that Warner Brothers wishes they had right now, and they kind of do. They do have their own version of it, right? They went through like DC did a whole like comic book reboot.
They reboot every 5 years. They do every 5 years over there, actually. Yeah.
So it's just like, I could see a version of Secret Wars happening. We're like, okay, let's kind of like shuffle the deck, see which ones we want to keep going and keep moving. But it does seem like we are leading to something, right? Mm-hmm. All of this is obviously not finished. We are theorizing, does the Multiverse of Madness wrap all of this up? It did not.
No.
We still got a lot of cosmic, multiversal quantum mess out there to deal with.
I would also say this is the first Marvel movie probably since Endgame where I felt the stakes are actually high, right? Like Black Widow, no. Shang-Chi, great. I don't think the stakes are that high yet. Eternals, lackluster, but I think at the ending does leave it very questionable with an eternal, or not eternal, a celestial sticking out of the ocean. Spider-Man kind of set him back on square one, right? So I feel like with incursions, dimensions, and universal hopping with America Chavez now in the MCU proper, the 616, I feel like there's a lot of opportunity here with this movie that left a lot of like weight on the table. I'm like, okay, there's still stuff to be reference experience here. Fallout from this whole journey could still be felt down the road, and that's a first in a long time I felt that we've had that.
Yeah, I what I'm basically waiting for right now is just a TV show or a movie to kind of just reference the insanity that is going on at the moment. It doesn't even have to be like a big moment, right? Even like an after credit scene. I can't even keep track of the after credit scenes anymore in the MCU, but like after we introduce Thanos once and, you know, some of these Infinity Stones are in play, he pops up again and he's, you know,
he's
saying
Guardians,
things
yeah.
like, you know, so I just kind of want to see like anybody reference, and maybe once we get to Ant-Man 3, right?
Yeah.
We'll see Jonathan Majors, Kang bring up something along these lines.
Yeah.
We will find out, I suppose.
Yeah, 100%. So we're moving along. Marvel back in true fashion, I feel, right? Like not that they were ever gone. Spider-Man was great, but like this feels like, oh, we're back in Marvel season. Thor: Love and Thunder is next. I feel it looks pretty good, right? I feel like we're gonna get back to some more classic Marvel with that. So awesome. Anything else you want to add to this before we jump off? Like I feel like we're feeling pretty jazzed right now, Mike, and I don't.
Yeah.
It's been a while since we've come off feeling pretty jazzed. So.
Yeah, I love ending a Marvel review where we just have lots of questions we can theorize. And basically, I feel like we have fueled, you know, the next couple of years of the podcast on like theories and stuff like that. So if you've made it this far into this episode, you've obviously seen the movie already. But I would say you got to run out, you got to see this one if you are in this universe, if you love watching this stuff, because like how long can we possibly go on our weekly news episodes, right, without really talking about the nitty gritty of this movie? Like I feel like maybe 2 weeks, like. It's not an official release, right? But there's already popular MCU news accounts that are just straight up tweeting photos of John Krasinski as Mr. Fantastic. Like you can't avoid it. Like, and it's not even marked as spoilers. It's just like, oh, John Krasinski as Mr. So like you gotta see this because we are definitely going to be talking about it for a while.
That's right, and I can't wait. So 45 days. This will be on Disney Plus as well. So I can't wait to experience it at home without fuckers ruin it in the movie theater because, you know, just to hell with them. No dogs allowed. Nothing against dogs, but no dogs allowed in the movie theater. Mike, let's wrap this up. Let's get into our weekly news episode. We still have that to listen to. If you made it this far, tune in for that. We love to do that every week. If people know what you're doing, what you're up to, where can they find you at?
Oh, they can find me at Mike Royer Design on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, and you can read my webcomics at pickledcomics.com. Chris, if people want to catch up with you, see what you're doing, where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter, Valdan, Valdan, or Instagram, Valdan87. If people know about the show, what we're doing, our regularly scheduled news episodes, I think we've probably got another movie before Thor: Love and Thunder. I don't know what it is yet. We'll have to go look. But if they want to know more about our reviews, where can they get all that good stuff at?
Well, if you want to meet the Illuminati of Superhero Slate, all of their chairs are neatly lined up in a row at superheroslate.com.
Both of them.
Yes, that is the best place to find all of the resources for our show, to get our awesome show notes, to get our upcoming release calendar. It's hard to keep track of everything as all these release dates inevitably always shift. So if you want to check out what the next Warner Brothers release is, DC, Marvel, Netflix release, comic book related, we got a nice upcoming release calendar on our website at superheroslate.com. Obviously, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, wherever else you love to listen to fine podcasts. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Instagram, and you can get merch at superheroslate.com/store. We love hearing from you. Please reach out like Superfan Jim did and let us know if any insanity happened in your movie theater. I'm ready to crack heads. Like, get me out there in your theater. You request me, I'll volunteer, and I'll be like a hawk. I've already seen the movie. I don't have to pay attention. I'll look at everybody else and I'll start knocking phones out of hands. Give me a call if I'm in your area.
That's right.
But if you want to be a super fan of the show, all you got to do is share the show with a friend, share the show with a buddy, and we will be here every week, folks.
That's right. We'll catch you guys next week.
Bye.
Thanks for listening, and don't forget to subscribe.